So far, we only displayed a simple message about our validation error. In this lecture, we're going to examine this error object in more detail. So this exception that we get in the catch block has a property called errors. In this object, we have a separate property for each invalid property in our course object. Let me show you what I mean. So back to our course object. Here are the properties of a course, right? Now here we have an invalid property that is tags. Let's also make category an invalid property. So I'm going to set this to a dash. Now with this errors object that we get will have two properties. One is tags, the other is category, okay? So we can iterate over all the properties in this error object and get more details about each validation error. So for field in x dot errors, here we do a console.log. We go to x dot errors, find that property, get its value. Now this is a validation error object. Let's have a look. So back in terminal, node index.js. So let me scroll up and see what is happening here. All right, so look, here we have a validation error object. This is the message. Below that, we have the stack trace, okay? Now all that aside, these are the properties we have in these validation error objects. So here's the message, which is what you have seen before. We have name, which is set to validation error. We have a property called properties, which gives us information about the validation requirements for this property. So here we have access to our validator function. You can see the type of this validator is enum. These are the valid enum values for this property. Path determines the name of our property, in this case, category, and value is the current value. So our validation error object has message, name, properties, and a few other properties here. One is kind, which is set to enum, and this is basically a shortcut to properties.type. We also have another shortcut property, pass, which is set to category, and value, which is the current value for this property. So here we're iterating over these validation error objects, and here we have multiple validation errors. So this is the first one, and below that, look, we have another validation error object. This is for a course should have at least one tag. So if we scroll down, you can see the kind of this validation error is user defined, because here we have a custom validator. The path is tags. The current value is null. So if you want to get the validation error message for each invalid property, we can simply access this message property. Now back in the terminal, let's run the application again. So we have two validation error messages. Dash is not a valid enum value for path category. And here's the second validation error for our tags property.